The warning beacons floated in the darkness of space like red eyes watching the stars. They surrounded Earth in every direction, thousands of them, each one sending the same message in 10,000 languages. Do not approach. Do not contact. Do not engage. The species below is forbidden. For 300 years, humanity had lived behind these beacons. They watched other species travel between stars. They saw great ships carrying traders and explorers pass by their solar system without stopping. Earth had become a prison. Most humans had forgotten why, but some remembered. Admiral Park Taeyeon stood in the command center buried, deep beneath the mountains of Korea. He was 58 years old, and his hair had turned gray from years of carrying a heavy burden. On the screens before him, he watched the galaxy live its life without humanity. Trade routes connected 1,000 worlds. Wars were fought with rules and honor. Species rose and fell in the great game of civilization, and Earth remained silent. Admiral, a young officer, said, "The Council is meeting today. Our sources say they will discuss us again." Taeyeon nodded slowly. "They discuss us every decade. Young delegates who don't remember ask why humans are locked away. Old delegates who do remember tell them stories. Nothing changes." Far across the galaxy, the Galactic Council gathered in a station the size of a small moon. Representatives from 500 species filled the great chamber. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had 2 legs, others had none. But they all shared one thing. They were afraid of the same species. Young delegate from a water world raised his fin to speak. "I wish to understand something. The humans have been quarantined for 200 years. Most of us have never met one. Why do we still fear them?" The chamber grew quiet. Elder Tovar, a being who had lived for 400 years, slowly rose from his seat. His body was thin and gray, and his eyes held memories of terrible things. "You want to know why we fear them?" Tovar said. "Then I will tell you the story of the Orion border conflict." The young delegates leaned forward to listen. 200 years ago, there was a small war at the edge of our territory. Nothing special. 2 species fighting over mining rights. We formed a peacekeeping coalition to end it. Someone suggested we invite the humans. They were new to the galaxy then, eager to prove themselves. We thought they could help. Tovar paused, and his voice became heavy. We were wrong. So very wrong. He touched a device, and images appeared in the air above the chamber. Ships burning. Stations crumbling. Worlds going dark. The enemy fleet had 300 ships. Standard numbers for a border conflict. We expected a battle that would last months, with negotiations and truces. The humans had only 50 ships. We thought they would be support vessels, nothing more. The images changed. Human ships moved through space like wolves hunting prey. They did not form lines. They did not follow patterns. They struck from every direction at once. They destroyed the enemy fleet in 6 hours. Not defeated, destroyed. Every single ship. No survivors. No prisoners. The young delegates' fins trembled. That is, efficient. That was only the beginning. Tovar's voice cracked. We told them to stop. The war was over. They had one. But they did not stop. More images. Orbital stations falling into planets. Supply lines burning. Colony ships exploding in the void. They hunted down every military base. Every weapons factory. Every shipyard. They found the enemy's homeworld and destroyed everything in orbit. They made it impossible for that species to ever travel to space again. But why? The young delegate asked. The war was won. Tovar looked at him with ancient, tired eyes. We asked them the same question. Their admiral, a woman named Sujong Kong, gave us an answer I have never forgotten. She said, "We do not fight wars. We end threats. A threat that can rebuild is not ended. So we made sure they could never rebuild." The chamber was completely silent. We realized then what we had invited into our galaxy. Humans do not understand limited war. They do not understand proportional response. When they fight until the enemy cannot fight back. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. Tovar sat down heavily. That is why we banned them. That is why we put up the beacons. Not because they are evil, but because they are too good at what they do. And what they do is extermination. On Earth, Dr. Yuna Kim read the reports from the council meeting. She was 34 years old, a scientist who studied alien life. She was one of the few humans allowed to leave Earth, permitted only to attend scientific conferences on neutral stations. She had heard the stories about the Orion conflict. Her entire life, humans told it differently. They called it necessary. They called it protection. They said the enemy had been planning to attack human colonies next, and the only way to save millions was to destroy thousands. Why UNA did not know which version was true. Perhaps both were. Her communication device beeped. A message from an alien colleague sent in secret? Something is coming. The Outer Rim systems have gone silent. The Council is afraid. More afraid than I have ever seen them. Una felt ice form in her stomach. That night, the Galactic Council received 17 distress signals from 17 different systems. Each message was the same. Dark ships appearing from nowhere, consuming everything in their path, leaving nothing behind but empty space and silence. The Devourer swarm had arrived, and somewhere in the council chamber, Elder Tovar looked at the map of falling systems and whispered words he never thought he would say. We need the humans. 6 months passed, and the galaxy learned what fear truly meant. The Devourer swarm moved through space like a plague. They were not interested in negotiation. They did not want territory or resources. They wanted only one thing: to consume. Every world they touched became empty. Every station they reached became dust. 40 star systems fell silent, and the Galactic Union could do nothing to stop it. Counselor Bryn stood before the war maps and watched another light go dark. She was old now, her scales faded with age, and she had led the council for 30 years. In all that time, she had never felt so helpless. The Velar system fleet is engaging the swarm, her aide reported. 3,000 ships. Our largest force? Bryn nodded. May the stars protect them. The battle lasted for hours. The Union fleet followed every rule of proper warfare. They formed defensive lines. They established safe zones for civilian evacuation. They sent messages offering negotiation. They fought with honor and discipline. The swarm did not care about honor. They came in waves that seemed endless, crashing against the Union ships like a dark ocean. They did not retreat. They did not negotiate. They simply ate and ate until nothing remained. Of 3,000 Union ships, 17 survived. They fled into deep space, carrying recordings of the massacre and one final message from their admiral: rules cannot save us. Nothing can save us. Counselor Bryn watched the recordings in silence. When they ended, she turned to Elder Tovar. You know what I must do, she said. Tovar closed his ancient eyes. I know, and I am terrified. Wait. More terrified than you are of the swarm. The old being did not answer for a long moment. Then he shook his head. Go to Earth. Bring them back. And may the stars forgive us all. 3 days later, Counselor Bryn's ship passed through the warning beacons around Earth. It was the first council vessel to do so in 200 years. She landed in a gray, rainy place called Korea, and soldiers in black uniforms escorted her to a bunker deep underground. Admiral Park Taeyeon was waiting for her. He did not look surprised to see her. He did not look angry or pleased. He simply looked at her with calm, patient eyes, like a man who had been expecting this visit for a very long time. Counselor, he said. Welcome to Earth, Admiral. Bryn's voice was steady, but her hands trembled. You know why I am here? I do. Then you know we need your help. The swarm is destroying everything. Our fleets cannot stop them. Our weapons are useless. We have tried everything. Not everything. Taeyeon's voice was soft. You have not tried us. Bryn lowered her head. We banned you. We imprisoned your species. We told the galaxy you were monsters, and now I come begging for your help. I have no right to ask. No, Taeyeon agreed. You do not. Silence filled the room. Rain drummed against the mountain above them. But you will ask anyway, Taeyeon continued, because you have no choice. So let me ask you one question, counselor. One question that will decide everything. Taeyeon leaned forward. Will you remove all restrictions? Bryn blinked. What do you mean? I mean exactly what I say. No rules of engagement. No protected zones. No limitations on weapons or tactics. If you want humans to fight this war, you must let us fight it our way. The human way. And what is the human way? Taeyeon's eyes were cold and clear. Total destruction. We do not stop when the enemy retreats. We do not stop when they surrender. We stop when they cannot hurt anyone ever again. That is how we fight. That is the only way we know. Bryn felt sick. You are asking me to unleash exactly what we feared. Yes, I am asking you to choose between two nightmares. The swarm will kill your galaxy slowly. We will save it quickly. But you will not like how we do it. And you will never be able to forget what you see. Far above them, Lieutenant Minho Beek sat in a dark room, reading stolen files. He was 29 years old, and he had spent his whole life hating the aliens who had trapped humanity on Earth. Now, he hated them even more. The files contained a secret that the Council had hidden for 2 centuries. During the quarantine, 3 human colony ships had tried to escape to the Outer Rim. The Council had intercepted them. They had not simply turned the ships back. They had sterilized everyone on board. Men, women, children, made unable to have families. Then sent back to Earth as a warning. Minho's grandmother had been on one of those ships. He closed the files and sat in darkness for a long time. His rage was so deep that it had become quiet, like a fire burning beneath ice. Minho. Dr. Unikim's voice came through his communicator. You have been recalled to base. Something is happening. I know, he said. I know exactly what is happening. In the bunker, Counselor Bryn finally spoke. Very well, Admiral. No restrictions. Fight your way. Save us from the swarm. Taeyeon nodded once. Then he pressed a button on his desk, and his voice echoed across every human settlement on Earth and beyond. This is Admiral Park Tae-yoon. For 200 years, we have been prisoners. We have watched. We have waited. We have prepared. Now the galaxy that feared us has come begging for our help. They want monsters. They want weapons. They want the very thing they tried to bury. He paused. And when he spoke again, his voice was iron. So let us show them. We have been asleep for 200 years. Time to remind the galaxy why they let us sleep. All ships, all soldiers, all citizens. Prepare for war. Not their war. Our war. Total war. Across Earth, lights turned on in hidden facilities. Ships rose from underground hangars. Soldiers put on armor they had maintained for generations. Waiting for this moment, Dr. Unikim stood on a hill and watched the first troop ships climb into the sky. She had studied aliens her whole life, trying to build bridges between species. Now those bridges were burning, and something old and terrible was waking in her chest. Pride, fear, purpose. She was human, and humanity was going to war. The Galactic Council sent observers to watch humanity prepare for war. They expected to see amazing technology, new weapons beyond imagination, ships that could tear holes in space. They thought human power came from machines. They were wrong. General Yoonji-Roo was 52 years old. The soldiers called her the grandmother because she smiled warmly and spoke softly, like someone's kind old aunt. She brought the alien observers tea and asked about their families. She made them feel comfortable and safe. Then she showed them how humans trained for war. You must understand, she explained gently. We do not have better ships than you. Our weapons are not much stronger. Our technology is similar. What makes us different is not what we have, is how we think. The observers watched human soldiers practice fighting with broken bones. They saw simulations where surrender was not an option, where every battle ended only when one side was completely destroyed. They watched officers study alien biology, looking for weaknesses, for soft places to strike. "This is madness," one observer whispered. "There is no honor here, no ritual, no respect for the enemy." General Yunji heard him. Her smile did not change, but something cold moved behind her eyes. "Honor is a luxury for those who can afford to lose," she said. "We cannot afford to lose, so we do not have honor, we have victory. Do you understand the difference?" The observer did not answer. In another part of the base, Hound Park worked on the weapons her team had built in secret. Old Admiral Tayan's daughter, and she had inherited her father's calm eyes and patient hands. But where her father commanded fleets, she commanded destruction. "These are kinetic impactors," she explained to her team. "Pieces of metal moving at half the speed of light. When they hit a planet, they crack it open like an egg." "And these?" a young engineer asked, pointing at strange containers. "Biological weapons. Viruses designed to eat organic material. Once released, they consume everything alive on a world within days. And this." The engineer's voice was barely a whisper now, pointing at a massive device covered in warning signs. Hound was quiet for a moment. "We call them sun killers. They destabilize the core of a star. One sun killer can turn a sun into a bomb that destroys everything within 2 light years." "Why would you build such things?" Hound looked at him with tired eyes. "Because someday we knew someone would need them. Okay, and today that day has come." Captain Suyang Han ran battle simulations on the warship Jindo. She was 41, a woman of few words and absolute focus. Her crew had practiced together for 15 years, waiting for a war that might never come. Now it had come, and they were ready. "Again," she ordered after a successful simulation. "The enemy died in 8 minutes. That is too slow. Find a way to kill them in 6. Her crew did not complain. They understood. In real battle, every extra minute gave the enemy time to kill more humans. Speed was not about efficiency, it was about survival. On the training grounds, Sergeant Jahunsha worked with the new soldiers. He was 35, a man built like a mountain, with scars on his hands from years of combat training. The newest recruit was a young man named Do-Yan Shin, 22 years old, with bright eyes and dreams of heroism. Sergeant Do-Yan asked during a break, "When do we become heroes?" Ji-hoon looked at him for a long time. "Heroes," he repeated. "You want to be a hero?" "Yes, Sergeant, like in the stories. Saving people, fighting evil." Ji-hoon sat down beside him. "Let me tell you something, Private. When this war is over, nobody will call us heroes. The aliens will call us monsters. Some of our own people will call us monsters. We will do things that will give us nightmares for the rest of our lives." Do-Yan's face fell. "Then why do we fight?" "'Cause someone has to. 'Cause if we do not become monsters, real monsters will eat everyone we love. We are not heroes, Private. We're exterminators. We kill pests so that others can live. There is no glory in it. Only necessity." The observers watched and recorded everything. They had expected to find a secret, some hidden technology that made humans dangerous. Instead, they found something far more frightening. A philosophy. Humans did not see war as a game with rules. They saw it as a disease to be cured. And you do not cure a disease by being gentle. You cure it by destroying every trace of it, burning it out completely, leaving nothing behind that could spread and grow again. Dr. Yuna met with the alien diplomats one final time before the fleet departed. They came with proposals for rules of engagement, protected zones, limits on civilian casualties. Yuna listened to them all. Then she spoke, and her voice was harder than they had ever heard it. "You want rules," she said. "The swarm does not have rules. They do not care about your protected zones. They do not negotiate. They consume and destroy without thought or mercy." "But surely," one diplomat began. "Surely what?" "Surely we should be better than them. Surely we should fight honorably, even as they eat our children." Yuna stood up. "You came to us because your rules failed. Came to us because your honorable fleets are dead. Came to us because you finally understand what we understood 200 years ago. Some enemies cannot be reasoned with. Some enemies can only be destroyed." She walked to the door, then paused. You banned us because we were too good at killing. Now you need us to kill again. So stand back, diplomats. Watch what real war looks like. Pray you never need us again." The observers filed their final reports. They all said the same thing. They are not preparing for war. They are preparing for extinction, and they do not care whose. The human fleet gathered above Earth. 4,000 ships built in secret over 2 centuries. No flags flew. No music played. There was no parade, no celebration, no speeches about glory. There was only silence and purpose and the cold light of distant stars. Admiral Taeyun stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at his fleet. Then he looked at his daughter Houn, who would stay behind to maintain the weapons. "Father," she said quietly, "come back." "I will try," he said. "But if I do not remember what I told you, do not let them forget what we are or what we choose not to be." The fleet departed Earth, moving toward the darkness where the swarm waited. The galaxy had asked for monsters. Monsters were coming. The Korath cluster was the last line of defense before the inner systems of the Galactic Union. Beyond it lay the heart of galactic civilization. Ancient homeworlds, great libraries, trillions of lives. If the swarm broke through here, nothing could stop them. The combined fleet arrived at Korath and found death waiting for them. The swarm had gathered its full strength, a mass of dark ships so large it blocked out the stars. Millions of creatures and millions of vessels, all connected by a single hive mind. All hungry for flesh and blood, Union commanders immediately began planning defensive lines. They calculated angles of fire, escape routes, protected zones for damaged ships to retreat. Admiral Taeyun watched their plans on the tactical display. Then he spoke 2 words that changed everything. No defense. The Union admiral, a tall being covered in blue feathers, turned to him in shock. "What do you mean?" "We must establish defensive positions. That is basic warfare. Basic warfare lost you 40 systems." Taeyun's voice was calm. "Defense is just slow defeat. We do not defend. We attack. Attack that." The Union admiral pointed at the endless mass of swarm ships. "That is suicide." "Perhaps. But it is our suicide, not yours. Now stand aside and watch." The human fleet moved forward. They did not form lines. They did not create formations. They scattered like leaves in the wind, spreading out across millions of kilometers of space. The Union observers thought they had gone mad. Then the attack began. Human ships moved like nothing the swarm had ever faced. They did not behave like a fleet. They behaved like individual predators, each one hunting on its own, striking and disappearing, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. They worked in small groups of 3 or 4, surrounding individual hive ships and tearing them apart before the swarm could respond. The swarm's hive mind tried to adapt. It was designed to fight enemies that moved together, thought together, acted as one, but humans did not think as one. Each captain made their own decisions. Each ship was its own mind. The swarm could not predict them because there was nothing to predict. In the first hour, 200 hive ships died. On the surface of an infested planet, Sergeant Jihoon's squad landed in hell. The sky was black with swarm creatures. The ground was covered with the remains of the species who had lived here before. Everything smelled of death and decay. Private Do-Yan stepped out of the landing craft and froze. The swarm up close was worse than any nightmare. They were insects the size of humans, with too many legs and too many teeth, and eyes that held no thought, no mercy, no soul. Jihoon grabbed Do-Yan's arm and pulled him forward. "Fear is fine. Stopping is not. Move or die." They fought through streets filled with monsters. Do-Yan watched his fellow soldiers do things he had never imagined. They used wounded comrades as bait, letting the swarm gather around them before detonating explosives hidden in their armor. They pretended to retreat, leading the creatures into kill zones where automated guns cut them down by the thousands. "This is not war," Do-Yan whispered. "This is butchery," as Jihoon said. "Now keep butchering. Space." Captain Su-Yang pushed the Jindo to its limits. Her ship had destroyed 30 hive ships already, more than any other vessel in the fleet. But the battle was far from over, and her weapons were failing. Captain, main guns are offline. We have only ramming capability left. Su Yang did not hesitate. Find a priority target. Something important. There is a command ship. If we destroy it, this section of the swarm will lose coordination. Then that is where we go. The Jindo accelerated toward the command ship, engines burning at maximum power. The crew knew they would not survive. They stayed at their posts anyway. The impact was beautiful and terrible. The Jindo drove through the heart of the command ship and detonated its remaining power cores. Both ships vanished in a ball of fire that could be seen from distant moons. Captain Su Yang was thrown clear in an escape pod. She was badly injured, bleeding and broken, but alive. When rescue ships found her hours later, she said nothing. There was nothing to say. The Jindo was gone. Her crew was gone. And the war was not yet won. Lieutenant Minho led his squadron into the deepest part of the swarm, where the creatures were thickest. It was a suicide mission by any standard, a journey into darkness from which there was no return. He had volunteered anyway. Minho. Dr. Yuna's voice came through his communicator from far away. Please, come back. I cannot, he said. Someone has to open a path to the Queen. Someone has to make sure the final weapon can reach her. Then let someone else do it. So they can die instead of me? Minho smiled, though she could not see it. Tell them something for me, Yuna. Tell the aliens who imprisoned us, who sterilized my grandmother, who called us monsters for 200 years. Tell them we were not monsters. We just refused to lose. The squadron flew into the darkness. One by one, his ships were destroyed around him. But each death opened the path a little more. Each sacrifice brought them closer to the heart of the swarm. Minho's last transmission was a simple word. Clear.
Oh.
Then his ship was gone, and the path to the Queen lay open. General Yunji-Ru had waited for this moment. The Swarm Queen, the central mind that controlled all the creatures, had hidden herself inside the core of a gas giant. Protected by the planet's storms and pressure, she thought herself safe. She was wrong. Launch the Sun Killers, Yunji ordered. 3 massive weapons flew toward the gas giant. They were designed to destroy stars, but they would work on planets too. When they reached the core and detonated, the entire planet would tear itself apart. But there was a problem, General Harade said. Voice shaking, we still have 1 million soldiers in the blast radius. There is no time to evacuate them. Yunji closed her eyes. I know, General, you cannot. They know too. Yunji's voice cracked. I told them. They chose to stay. They chose to make sure the Queen does not escape. On the planet's surface, Sergeant Ji-hoon heard the evacuation alert. Then he heard the cancellation. Then he understood. Sergeant. Doyeon's voice was young and afraid. What is happening? Ji-hoon put his hand on the young man's shoulder. We are ending the war, Private. Right here? Right now, but we will die. Yes. Ji-hoon looked up at the dark sky where the sun killers were falling. But everyone we love will live. That is the trade. That has always been the trade. Doyeon was silent for a moment. Then he raised his weapon and faced the approaching swarm creatures. Then let us make sure it was worth it. The sun killer struck the planet's core. For one moment. The gas giant became a second sun, blazing with light so bright it could be seen across the entire cluster. Then it collapsed, tearing itself apart in a storm of fire and destruction that consumed everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. The Swarm Queen died. The hive mind collapsed. Across the galaxy, swarm creatures stopped moving, stopped fighting, stopped living. Without their queen, there were nothing but empty shells. The war was over, Admiral. Taeyeon stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship and watched the dying light of the gas giant. 1 million human soldiers had died in that fire. 1 million fathers, mothers, sons, daughters. 1 million dreams ended to save trillions of lives. An alien counselor approached him, trembling with shock. How? He whispered. How could you sacrifice so many of your own people? Taeyeon did not look at him. He kept watching the light fade, remembering every face, every name, every story that had burned in that terrible fire. Because we knew what we were protecting, he said. Because that is what humans do. We burn ourselves to keep others warm. We become monsters so that others can stay human. The counselor had no response. He simply stood there, watching the human admiral grieve, and finally began to understand what humanity truly was. Not monsters. Something far more frightening. People willing to become monsters and pay the price and carry the guilt forever so that others would not have to. 5 years passed after the war. The galaxy slowly healed its wounds. Ruined worlds were rebuilt. Destroyed fleets were replaced. The swarm became a memory, a nightmare that people tried to forget, but nobody forgot the humans. The Galactic Council gathered to make an offer that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago. Full membership in the Union, unrestricted travel between stars, the right to colonize new worlds, seats on the Council itself. Everything that had been denied to humanity for 200 years, Dr. Una Kim stood before the Council as Earth's ambassador. She was 39 now, and gray had begun to appear in her black hair. The war had aged her. It had aged everyone who survived it. Ambassador Kim, Counselor Bryn said, "The Galactic Union wishes to formally invite humanity to join our community. Full rights, full privileges, equal partnership. This is our thanks for your sacrifice." Una listened to the translation in her earpiece. The great chamber was silent, waiting for her response. 500 species expected her to accept with joy and gratitude. She did not. "The Union is generous," Una said, her voice carrying across the vast room. "But humanity declines your offer." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Counselor Bryn raised her hand for silence. "I do not understand, Ambassador. This is everything your people wanted." "No." Una shook her head. "This is everything you think we wanted. What we wanted was respect, partnership, friendship. Instead, you kept us locked away for 200 years. You told the galaxy we were monsters. You sterilized our people as a warning." The whispers stopped. Many in the chamber had not known about the sterilized colony ships. Now they knew. "And when death came for you," Una continued, "you did not ask us for partnership. You asked us for violence. You wanted weapons, not allies. Attack dogs, not friends." Counselor Bryn lowered her head. "Ambassador, I am not finished." Una's voice hardened. "We came when you called. We fought your war. We sacrificed 1 million of our own people to save your galaxy. And now you offer us membership as payment, like coins for mercenaries." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We do not want payment. We do not want to be your weapons. If you want humanity in your union, you must want us as equals. It's not because of what we can destroy, but because of what we can build. Until you understand that, we will remain on Earth, alone, but free." She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, 500 species sat in silence, finally beginning to understand how deeply they had wronged the humans. 2 years earlier, Admiral Park Taeon had died. Not in battle, not from wounds. He simply grew old and tired, and one day his heart stopped. He died in his bed, surrounded by his daughter Houn and the surviving members of his command. His funeral was quiet. No speeches about glory or victory, just silence and memory. And the soft sound of rain falling on the Korean mountains he had loved. Houn held her father's hand at the end. His last words to her were the same ones he had spoken before leaving for war. "Do not let them forget what we are, or what we choose not to be." She did not cry until after he was gone. Then she cried for a long time. Sergeant Ji-hoon Cha did not die in the gas giant's fire. He had been evacuated at the last moment, pulled to safety by soldiers who refused to leave him behind. He had not wanted to be saved. He had wanted to die with his soldiers. Now he ran a rehabilitation center for veterans. Men and women who had seen too much, done too much, and could not find peace. He understood them because he was one of them. Counselor Bryn came to visit him one day. She had traveled all the way from the council station, alone, without guards or ceremony. "I came to apologize," she said. For the colony ships, for the quarantine, for everything. Ji-hoon looked at her for a long time. He was 40 now, and his face was lined with scars, both visible and invisible. Apologies do not bring back the dead, he said finally. They do not heal the wounds or erase the memories. They are just words. I know. Brin's voice was small. I know they are not enough. No, they are not. Ji-hoon stood and walked to the window, looking out at the rehabilitation center's gardens where broken soldiers tried to remember how to be human. But I accept your apology anyway. That is the human way. We carry our pain and we move forward. How? Brin asked. How do you carry so much pain? Because we must. Because if we do not, it was all for nothing. Every death, every sacrifice, every nightmare. We honor them by continuing. By choosing to build instead of destroy. Brin was silent. Then she asked, Do you hate us? Ji-hoon thought about it. He thought about his soldiers who had died in the fire. He thought about the colony ships and the centuries of imprisonment. He thought about everything humanity had suffered because the galaxy was afraid of them. Sometimes he admitted, but hate is heavy. I am too tired to carry it forever. Private Doyan Shin survived the gas giant's fire. He had been on one of the last evacuation ships, pulled to safety by pure luck. For 2 years after the war, he could not speak about what he had seen. Now he was a sergeant himself, training new recruits who would hopefully never have to fight. Sergeant, a young soldier, asked him, what was the war really like? Doyan remembered the flames and the screaming. He remembered Ji-hoon's hand on his shoulder. He remembered the moment when he accepted that he would die, and the strange peace that came with it. It was terrible, he said. We did terrible things. We became something terrible. Then why did you fight? Because someone had to. Because if we did not become monsters, real monsters would have eaten everyone we loved. He paused. We won because we were willing to become monsters. We survive because we choose not to stay as monsters. The young soldier did not fully understand. But someday, Dojan hoped nobody would have to understand. Someday there would be no more wars. No more need for monsters. That was the dream worth surviving for. Hound Park personally destroyed the Sunkiller project. She burned the blueprints, deleted the files, and melted down the components. It took her 3 months to erase all traces of the weapons that had saved the galaxy. When she was done, she stood in the empty laboratory and whispered to her father's memory, We choose not to be monsters. I hope you would be proud. The galaxy built a memorial on the remains of the gas giant. It floated in space where 1 million humans had died, a great stone tablet listing every name. At the bottom, carved in 10,000 languages, were simple words. They came when called. They left when done. Humanity. Yuna visited Lieutenant Minho's memorial on Earth. It was a small stone in a field of thousands, one grave among many. She had never told him how she felt about him. Now she never would. She knelt beside the stone and whispered, They understand now. Minho, the galaxy finally understands. The wind blew through the memorial field, rustling the flowers that covered every grave. 1 million names, 1 million stories, 1 million reasons why humanity was worth saving, and worth fearing, and worth respecting. 500 years later, the Galactic Union's historical archives recorded the final truth about humanity. Why were humans banned from galactic wars? Because they do not fight to win. They fight until nothing remains that could threaten what they love. They burn stars and crack planets and sacrifice their own children without hesitation, because they understand something other species do not. Some things are worth any price. And why did we call them back? Because when the darkness came, we needed someone willing to become darker. We needed monsters to fight monsters. Now we understand the truth about humanity. They were never the monsters. They were the ones who knew exactly what kind of monster was needed and what it cost to become one. They paid that price for us. They burned themselves so that our children could live. We called them weapons. We called them beasts. We called them the forbidden species. We should have called them what they truly were. Heroes. The the heroes who were willing to be hated, so that others could be saved. May we never need them again, and may we never forget what they did for us. On Earth, humans continued to live. They built cities and raised children and looked at the stars with hope instead of fear. The warning beacons were gone. The prison was open. But most humans stayed home anyway, not because they were forbidden to leave, but because Earth was worth staying for. And in a small house in Korea, an old woman told her grandchildren the story of the war, how their great-grandfather had flown into the darkness and never returned, how their great-grandmother had walked into the Galactic Council and said no. Were they heroes? The children asked. The old woman smiled sadly. They were human, she said, and sometimes that is the bravest thing you can be.